Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'm going to take a little mosey on over across the pond to the United States for a bit and discuss the, well, frankly, quite remarkable events concerning the impeachment testimony of Trump's pick to be ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland. But first, if you'd like to see more of my videos, then please subscribe to the channel and click on the bell notification icon. So the first thing I would have to comment on would be Sondland's role in the Ukraine scandal. After all, he was ambassador to Brussels, the ambassador to the EU, the European Union, a collection of quite a lot of European nations, but not Ukraine. So one question really would be, what the hell was he having any involvement in Ukraine at all? But then I don't think anyone has ever accused Donald Trump of appointing someone to a position in order to actually do their job. And Sondland was certainly not picked for his diplomatic experience, of which, of course, he has none. More likely it had something to do with the $1 million donation he gave to Trump when he was being inaugurated. So let's forget about why an ambassador to one part of the world was asked by the president to involve himself in another part of the world, albeit geographically not miles away. The allegation against Donald Trump is that he threatened to withhold some hospitality, but also security aid to Ukraine unless they instigated a muckraking investigation against Joe Biden, one of Trump's political opponents at the next presidential election, as that gears up over the next year. Now, I said at the time that the news broke that of all the terrible things that Donald Trump has done and is worthy of investigation, it seems odd that it is this that finally shook the Democrats into action and to begin impeachment proceedings, like getting Al Capone on tax evasion. But I suppose, as with Capone, it was just the easiest thing to prove, and so that's what they've gone with. And in a country even more partisan than my native UK, skirmishes, of course, have already taken place before the star witness even appeared in this affair. Seems funny to me that Republicans were initially complaining that the proceedings were taking place in private, when you'd think the last thing that they would want was for this testimony to be made public. But yesterday it was. And Trump has done what Trump has always done. Said what a great guy this is, right up until the time when they decide that supporting the nylon haired one isn't worth going to prison over. Then he turns on them, partly out of petulant spite and partly to try and discredit any unfavourable words that they may have about the president in the future. So President Trump, first of all, of course, on his appointment, tweeting what a great guy he is, going to be fantastic, brilliant for the United States. Now he's trying to say, I don't even really know him. The guy that's with Donald Trump there. Donald Trump hardly knows him. He thinks he's a nice guy. That's about it. So, did Trump and his allies manage to discredit Sondland as a rogue diplomat? This is, I suppose, one good thing about appointing someone who's not a diplomat to a diplomatic role. I mean, the guy owns hotels. That's what he does. And one advantage of that is you can sort of say when something goes south, oh, he's not really got diplomatic experience, doesn't really understand the role, he went a bit rogue, doesn't really get what's required of him. Well, I don't think that really stuck based on the reports and what I saw of today's proceedings. Gordon Sondland made it crystal clear that he was acting on President Trump's direct orders. And he also had proof that Vice President Pence and Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, were directly involved and fully aware of what was going on throughout. And just the fact that Sondland was told to work with Giuliani, is questionable in itself, as he has nothing to do with the US government. Should not have been involved in any diplomacy on America's behalf. He's Donald Trump's personal attorney, not an official position. And it was Giuliani that was trying to pursue a narrative that it was actually Kiev and not Moscow that was responsible for interference in the 2016 presidential election. At this point, we were long past the stage of trying to deny that interference took place. Might as well at least try and throw the blame elsewhere. Trump's team tried to discredit other witnesses by saying that they weren't getting instructions directly from him. It was instructions from a person from Trump and second-hand knowledge and all that. And so they probably misinterpreted what he really wanted, didn't really understand the subtleties in the instructions. Not really possible with Sondland. He was in direct contact. And he was in contact not just with the President, but the State Department and the National Security Council as well. This meant Mike Pompeo and John Bolton as well as Pence. In fact, all the President's men were in the loop. And it wasn't just Sondland's word against theirs, he brought evidence. So you have to wonder if some people are starting to see events unfold in a way that will result in anyone tying themselves to Trump or winding up in prison. From the point of view of a foreign observer such as myself, I would probably look for evidence of current Trump allies cutting deals as a sign that these proceedings are doing fatal damage to the president. You would imagine the rats will abandon the sinking ship if it indeed is going to sink. And one of Trump's defences was that there was no quid pro quo in his demands. He did not threaten to withhold favours until the new Ukrainian president had carried out the investigations. And in order to lend veracity to this argument, Trump even made a phone call to his ambassador where he stated he didn't want anything in return. I don't want anything. Tell the president that, blah, blah. Unfortunately, this call took place after it became clear that this was all going to go public. Not exactly convincing to a critical mind, therefore. But Sondland was crystal clear. This was a quid pro quo for personal political favours for President Trump to help him win the next election campaign. It wasn't even a quid pro quo for America's benefit, just for his personal benefit. And one extremely interesting question that was asked of Sondland at the hearing said, would you say that the delay in military aid to Ukraine and the reluctance to have a White House meeting have a benefit to Russia? To which Gordon Sondland replied, I think it could be looked at that way, yes. Of course, the reason Ukraine is in need of military aid is because Russia invaded it some years ago, when nobody in the West lifted a finger to help, Europe included. And emboldened by our lethargy, Putin has become increasingly aggressive in his attempts to resurrect the Soviet Union. Any abandonment of Ukraine by the United States would help Russia a great deal, just as it did with Trump's disastrous treatment of America's Kurdish allies. Of course, during the testimony, Sondland did his best to defend himself and paint himself in the best possible light. He didn't really want this and the president's orders. But whether we believe the statements and sentiments on his behalf that he can't prove is down to the individual. You either will or you won't. For me, it doesn't really matter. For me personally, none of this could have happened without Donald Trump as president. He's not just responsible because the book ultimately stops with him. That would apply to any president making a cock-up like this. But because even a common garden corrupt president wouldn't have gone this far. This is really unprecedented behaviour from a president of the United States. And why does this matter to a Britain who, well, ought to have enough trouble with his own political boneheads in office? Well, for one, of course, America is such a massive influence on global politics and economics that what happens there is extremely important everywhere. Every utterance Donald Trump makes has the potential to ripple around the world quite literally, and sometimes create a tsunami that will affect us all. But also, when you consider all the crap that keeps happening in the United States, as well as here in the United Kingdom, over the past few years, all of it points back to bloody Putin. Every disastrous event unfolding somehow benefits Russia directly. Pulling American troops out of Syria benefited Russia. Failing to support Ukraine would benefit Russia. Breaking apart the EU would benefit Russia. So tearing a great chunk of it off benefits Russia. You know, Trump's refusal to criticise Russia in the first few years of his presidency obviously benefits Russia. Each of these individual events taken in isolation can benefit other unfriendly or competitive nations as well. But all of them collectively benefit Russia. And all of the key players on both sides of the Atlantic have strong ties with the Kremlin. The Kremlin is fighting a secret war with the West, and it's winning. And how many more wins will Putin gain before his agents in both the US and the UK are finally exposed and removed from doing any more harm against their own respective countries? But there you are. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, then please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. Until next time, I'll see you later.